In today's video, I wanted to look at a bunch of different DLC map locations for future Cold War Zombies maps. The recent Firebase Z gameplay trailer might have given us a sneak peek as to where we're going for the next couple of DLC maps. Now, some of these locations here we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about the ones before: Berlin, Ural Mountains, different stuff like that, the potential remakes of Transit Buried in Dire Eyes, but we also have here California, Washington, D.C., Florida, even New York City being teased in this gameplay trailer. So some super cool stuff here, and these map locations could play into the remakes. Like the Dire Eyes remake could be brought into New York City and brought as an entirely new map just based off of what we saw back in Black Ops 2. So a lot of stuff to go through here in this video. I want to thank you guys for yesterday's video. We are over 800 likes, almost at 900 likes. So seriously, I appreciate that so much. If we can go for 800 likes on this video, that'd be super cool. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Black Ops Cold War content, some more Firebase Z content coming soon as well. We're super close to 70,000 subs. So seriously, thank you guys again for the support recently. Let's get started here, talk about the DLC map location. So you guys remember the beginning of the Cold War Zombies reveal trailer for D Machina back in September. At the beginning of this trailer, we got this shot here. This is from the Glitching Queen, so shout out to her. But Weaver is looking at these TV screens, and these turned out to be a bunch of future DLC map locations and also just launch map locations: Moscow, Poland, D Machina, Quezon, Combat Base, Vietnam, Firebase Z, and then future maps DLC 2 and DLC 3 most likely, Berlin, Germany, Kino remake potentially, and the Ural Mountains Russian map, the location from the campaign in Black Ops Cold War. Now, this is teasing future zombie maps in this trailer. The Firebase Z trailer we just got looks like it's also teasing some future map locations as well. The original D Machina reveal trailer only has 4 map locations listed here, and clearly we're not only going to get 4 total zombie maps in Cold War Zombies, we're gonna run out of maps by DLC 3. So DLC 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 still kind of unknown as to where we're going in those maps. And again, this Firebase Z trailer may have actually teased these new locations to us. So let's look at it here. It's in the middle of the trailer, and it's not just in the trailer, it's actually a location in the map itself. It seems to be in the power room of Firebase Z. On the wall, you could see a bunch of different screens with different locations all around the world with red dots on very specific locations here. So we're going to talk about these locations on the map of the world, and then later on in the video I want to pinpoint on New York City because there's a separate map, a separate computer screen that is directly on New York City. Now here's a zoomed in picture of this map in the Firebase Z Zombies map, and in the trailer as well it says identified outbreak zones. So these are different areas where the zombie outbreaks are taking place. We're not so sure of the exact timeline as to what exactly is going on in these locations. Are there dark ether anomalies showing up here? Are there dark ether dimensional gateways that Omega Group is accessing, just like they're doing here with the Quezon combat base in Vietnam in Firebase Z? Requiem learned that Omega Group was already constructing this new site to access this dark ether portal, or the dimensional gateway to the dark ether in this area, and all of these other locations could be other areas that Omega Group is planning or currently working on constructing new sites, and then Requiem will have to go to these locations and fight them. Same kind of concept what we're seeing here in Firebase Z. I could see that also play out in the rest of the locations for the Cold War Zombies DLC. But regardless of what's going on in these locations, there are a couple of different red dots on this map. You have one in Berlin. Now that one does kind of make sense. Berlin is also seen at the beginning of the D Machina reveal trailer that we've been talking about, and I think everyone's in consensus that we're going to see some type of Berlin Kino remake zombies map in that location. So that location popping up again does not surprise me, but the other locations here, it's kind of hard to tell. The red dots are kind of blurry, kind of hard to see, but a bunch of people on Reddit were also pointing out here that these red dots are landing on places such as Washington, D.C., or at least the area around D.C. We have Florida, potentially Miami, and we also have somewhere in Southern California. So very interesting spots for red dots here. It would be very interesting to see, at least storyline wise, how Omega Group is able to get into the United States and fight the army and actually are able to to, you know, construct these sites to be there, because usually, or at least it seems like for the Cold War Zombies maps, we're going to be fighting Omega in all of these DLC map locations. So for a Zombies map to take place in DC, especially of all places, the capital of the US, something major has to happen in the storyline where Omega Group is able to actually get there, set up shop, and open a Dark Aether dimensional gateway. The zombie outbreak that takes place in the US must be so large, and the US must just lose complete control of everything for the Soviet Union and the Omega Group to be able to set up shop there, like I said again. So that would be super, super cool storyline wise. The locations as well, you know, a California Zombies map, a map in DC, maybe some type of 5 remake, not really a 5 remake, but just some type of cool map that takes place in the areas around DC would be pretty sick to see. Florida, we could see a beach map or a semi-tropical type of map for zombies, so super cool there. And these are all locations that we haven't been to before in past Treyarch zombie maps. We've been to Germany a million times now. We've been to kind of the same locations over and over again, so to mix it up, have a bit more of a variety of the different map locations here would be really, really cool to see. And definitely let me know down below, what would you want them to add in these different map locations? If you live in these areas, what would be cool things they could add to the map to make it, you know, really unique for that specific location? I do have to say, however, these locations could be relating to Onslaught in Black Ops Cold War. There are a lot of different intel documents in Black Ops Cold War Zombies that kind of relate to cool ideas, cool locations, but they're not really relating to the main storyline, and they're more relating to Zombies Onslaught. So you guys know about the intel for Angola, South Africa. People were saying, well, that's the same location where Buried takes place from Black Ops 2 Zombies, but Angola, South Africa is also the location where the Black Ops Cold War multiplayer map Satellite takes place. So just because we have a location here doesn't mean it's relating to the main zombie storyline or the DLC maps. It could be relating to the multiplayer maps in Black Ops Cold War that are playable in Onslaught. So in Florida here, the red dot could just be pointing towards the Miami multiplayer map. DC maybe isn't DC, but is closer to New Jersey, and that could just be the Pines multiplayer map in Cold War. We have California, which could just be relating to Onslaught Raid in Black Ops Cold War. Berlin, there's also a multiplayer map called Checkmate in Black Ops Cold War, if you guys didn't know, takes place in Berlin, Germany. So all of these red dots here could just be pointing at these multiplayer maps in the game relating to Onslaught. My question is, why would they have all of this stuff in Firebase Z? Why is this main room in Firebase Z pinpointing at different Onslaught map locations? To me, Treyarch putting this map within Firebase Z itself, hinting at potential other locations for Dark Aether dimensional gateways, other zombie outbreak locations, relates to the main storyline and what exactly is happening within Firebase Z and Die Maschine, as opposed to Onslaught, which is kind of connected but not entirely. It's going to be pretty cool to see exactly where these locations play into in the storyline. These could end up just being locations that are important, are relevant to this storyline, but not necessarily DLC map location. So we'll have to see what we actually get here for the future of the Cold War Zombies DLC maps. Someone on Reddit said this about the US DLC map locations. Potentially, it would be pretty cool to see 2 or 3 maps set in the US. Makes sense for them to be the final DLCs. Granted, if Omega succeed and truly harness the Dark Aether, but why would they already have bases in the US? Seems odd that the Americans would just allow a Soviet group to do weird experiments on US soil during the Cold War. So that is the only storyline reason as to why I also think it doesn't really make sense for Omega Group to be able to build these bases in these United States locations, because I don't think the US would ever allow them, even in a fictional storyline. So Omega must have some crazy control, and the next couple of DLC maps, Firebase Z, DLC 2 and 3, the Berlin, Euro Mountain zombie maps, we have to see if Omega Group really grows and becomes so powerful to where they are able to get into the United States and start building bases there to open other dimensional gateways to the Dark Aether. So super cool to see there what happens. Now, to move on here, let's talk about New York City. So in this same location, right next to the map of the world in Firebase Z, in this power room, there's a map zoomed in location of New York City. Very interesting here as to why in this Omega Outpost 25 in Vietnam, Firebase Z, you have a map here monitoring the New York City area. Super interesting to see if New York City is playing any role in what's going on right now. This is Omega's outpost. This is Omega's outpost in Vietnam. Why are they monitoring New York City? Why is there a map of that area in this Vietnam outpost? For what reason are they looking at it? Again, is this a teaser for a future DLC map location? Is this something where New York City is going to be relevant to the storyline, at least the zombie storyline, the main zombie storyline, in some type of way in the future? Does Omega have connections in the US, in the city? That could be very possible. There could be some type of Cold War Omega spy in the United States undercover doing certain things, specifically in New York City. Now, someone commented here on one of my videos where I mentioned this a couple of days ago. He said, search New York Cold War nuclear bomb shelter and subway station, you'll be surprised. And apparently they built a ton of fallout shelters during the Cold War because of the impending threat of a bomb, a nuclear bomb being brought onto the city or onto the country as a whole. It says, New York City fun facts, former nuclear fallout shelters are scattered around New York City from the Cold War. And here's just some images as to what was going on back then, some stuff of an actual example of a fallout shelter there. Super cool. And if they did have a DLC map location in the 80s with the Cold War theme, these fallout shelters could play some type of role here, and it doesn't have much to do with zombies, but it would be a pretty cool location. Someone also commented, Shaolin Shuffle remake. I mean, again, we did have a New York City Zombies map in the past for Infinite Warfare Zombies, Shaolin Shuffle. You were in the streets of New York, you were in the subway. It was a super cool map, but it was Infinite Warfare Zombies, and obviously not a lot of people played that game and that map specifically. It would be super cool to see a New York City Zombies map, and a lot of people were also talking about in my comment section, maybe this New York City Zombies map in Cold War Zombies could be the new Rise Remake. Just like Die Maschine, it has a small portion of Nocturne Toten, and Nocturne Toten originally took place somewhere in Germany. In Cold War Zombies, it just randomly takes place in Moscow, Poland, so the original map locations for these maps don't really matter. Die Rise and Black Ops 2 Zombies took place in China, and in Cold War Zombies, it doesn't necessarily need to take place in China. It could easily take place in New York City, and the Die Rise remake could be a completely different setting, the same type of vibe, a vertical style map, but it could be in the buildings, the skyscrapers of New York City in the 80s, which would be really cool. So leave your comments down below. Would you want them to do that? And that could be a way they bring back Die Rise, but revamp it. New location, new elements, new map layout, and you know, they bring the lore of Die Rise back, but it's not necessarily the same map that we saw back in Black Ops 2, which a lot of people would maybe like because a lot of people didn't like Die Rise, and I know there's a ton of people out there that don't necessarily want to see Die Rise brought back, and that could be a good way to kind of bring Die Rise back, but also make it a new map entirely. Now, that's just a theory, obviously, but it's going to be very interesting to see why these locations are being teased here in Firebase Z, and again, if they do mean anything for the future, whether or not they're DLC maps or they're just relevant to the storyline in some type of random way. So leave your comments down below. What do you think about these locations here? Do you want them to be a zombie map locations? Leave a comment down below. Also, zombies, if you watch the whole video, it is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys in the next video or live stream. Peace out, guys.